for joining us today for our Microsoft and sa.global webinar on cloud migrations and why it should matter to you. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can turn my camera on here real quick. There we go. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to go through a session to talk about really risks of being on outdated technology, the benefits of catching up. Tyler from Microsoft, who will intro in just a moment, is going to take us through some Microsoft information on uniquely Microsoft, why leverage the Microsoft stack, and some of the advantages that you can gain within your business by doing that. We're going to highlight some successful cloud migration considerations, things to be aware of during a project as you're scoping a move to the cloud, what that could look like, and then if there's any questions at the end, we're happy to go through those as well. And before we get started here, quick intros. My name is Ryan Grant. I am with sa.global. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here in the Americas. And I've been doing this for a long time. We'll just say more than 20-something years. And happy to be with you today to take you through some information. Tyler, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for everyone that's joined for your time today. My name is Tyler Lewin. So I'm a technical specialist at Microsoft, and I'm focused on our Dynamics 365 for Finance offering. I've been working with Dynamics ERP for about 10 years now. Started off in technical support, did that for a few years, and then did some implementation consulting as well with one of our implementation partners. And I've been enrolled for about 5 years now. And I'm located in our tropical Fargo, North Dakota office. So I'm glad to be teaming up with sa.global to present this session, and just looking forward to any questions that you guys might have, and talking about why sa.global and why Microsoft, why move to the cloud. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. So before we jump into the presentation itself, I want to highlight just a little bit about sa.global. Who are we? What do we do? Why can we help you be successful? So we support over 800,000 users today on the Dynamics platform across the globe. Average number of years and experience of our consultants is not little. A lot of us have been doing this for a long time. We'll just say over 10, but it averages about 14. We've implemented in over 80 countries, and 100% focused on the Microsoft solution stack. Why is that important? We are not distracted by other pieces of technology. Everything that we do goes into our efforts around leveraging the Microsoft stack, making sure that the IP that we build, the approaches that we take, the methodologies that we use are really, really centered and really driven around utilizing the stack the most efficient way that we can. So a little bit about some of the risks of being on outdated technology. What you see on the screen here is really just a handful of the things that are probably pain points, concerns, challenges, issues, roadblocks that you may have within your everyday business, really. Lack of reporting, being behind your competitors in that technology advantage, customer experience, team member experience, hardware challenges, downtime. If you're on really old technology, or a lot of times custom built technology that's been built over the years by a outsourced or an in-house developer, what kind of knowledge is available to support that if you've been on it for 20 plus years? Being able to get to it from outside of the facility using a smartphone, using a tablet, using a web browser, the cost to maintain those things. These are all real everyday concerns and challenges that go into not doing anything. And the real aspect of it is it affects your business, it affects your team, it affects the bottom line, and the risk, cyber attacks, ransomware, all of those kinds of things are real by not staying modernized.
And Ryan, one thing that I've really seen with a lot of our customers is that adaptability is the new competitive edge, right? When we talk about on-prem systems, a lot of times we find ourselves being version locked because we've heavily customized. So anytime that there's new features that are released from the vendor, we're stuck in the version that we're on because it'll break all of our customizations if we upgrade and things like that. So when we think about being on-prem and being stuck in those current versions and not being able to take advantage of adaptive or changes in the marketplace, that's where these cloud solutions really come into play, because you're always up to date. So I just wanted to say that that's one of the most common things that I see with on-prem systems in our customers.
Yeah, it's a great point, because if you are looking to modernize or upgrade an app that's an on-prem app, now you got to upgrade the hardware that goes with it. You got to upgrade the operating system. You got to update the database infrastructure that's supporting it. All of those pieces go together. It's not just a matter of getting on a new version, right? So there's a lot of work there if you're running on an on-prem solution. Absolutely. So this is an example. This is one example of a situation that you may be in. Some prospects and clients that I talk to are in this. This is related to AX specifically, but this could be, any other legacy app from Microsoft. This could be any other on-prem ERP from another vendor, the custom-built application that I mentioned earlier. End of life, not having support, not being able to leverage the latest technology around OSs and SQL or whatever the database backend is. All of those pieces can play in to how you get to the new technology, into the cloud or into the new version or whatever that may be. On the right hand side, and we'll dig into this a little bit more, this leverages and this shows really what you can gain by moving into the cloud. And what you see there really stays that way, because when you're in a modern app based in a cloud infrastructure like Azure, like Dynamics, these things change and grow and upgrade with you as you need to. It's not a big process that you have to go through. So what does that mean? That means you can always leverage the newest technology, because you're always going to be on the latest version and the latest technology to support those applications. One of the examples that I like to talk about sometimes is a client of mine from the past, and how being on an on-prem solution affected them being able to do business. And what you see on the screen here is just a high-level summary of what this customer had in place. They had remote capabilities set up, even though they were running on-prem. They had the infrastructure in place. They had the applications in place to allow the remote workforce to access the system and work from anywhere. They had redundancy in place. They had a backup generator on the grounds of their facility in case they lost power for an extended period of time, to be able to power the servers, power the hardware, so that those things would work. They tested that recovery plan. They did a lot of testing around it. It worked. It was great. In 2017, we had wildfires go through Northern California, and what that led to was that winter a lot of floods and landslides, because the mountains and everything were just burned up. There was no vegetation to help deal with that runoff like normal. And in this situation, they missed one thing. The generator that was on site did not have remote start. They had to go up there and physically push a button. That's a real picture of the road that you use to get to their facility. That was closed for almost 3 weeks, and they were able to get by after 2 and get up there and turn that generator on, so they could then run their business and get access to those systems. But they had 2 weeks of downtime because they couldn't physically push that start button on that generator to power the backup plan. Why am I talking about this and pointing this out? You can have a plan, you can test it, you can have it in place, all the components. All it takes is one thing to either be missed or not thought about, or just have the unthinkable actually happen, to where now your business is affected, and all the work that went in to making sure you're going to have that business continuity happen the way that you wanted it to is just demolished because you can't push that start button. Really, the only way around this was to not be on on-prem systems, not have those things in-house, so that they could keep working like they normally would have liked to. Benefits of catching up. Why move to the cloud? Moving to the cloud gives you a chance to modernize your business processes and always be current on the latest technology. It will, without a doubt, reduce those ongoing maintenance costs and free up IT resources so they can do things proactively and help you plan on how to grow and better use that investment to help you grow and help you scale and help you continue to modernize and add in really differentiators from a technology perspective into the business instead of dealing with maintenance and upkeep. And reporting, access, security, reliability. We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes here. But I can't stress enough having access to good data and what that means for making business decisions is an absolute game changer. So here on this next slide, it's really about cloud enablement and what do you gain by being in a modern app like Dynamics 365, running on Azure, utilizing the Power Platform stack for reporting, Power Automate, low code, no code, all of those pieces. It really allows you to scale and grow, leverage new features and functionality when you're ready to. You don't have to do it all at once. Oftentimes I talk about laying the foundation when you move into a new piece of technology. Get really good at that foundation. You want to build that house up on top of that stable piece that you put in place. If you try to do it all at once, oftentimes user adoption will be a challenge, things like that. But how do you set that plan in place so that you can grow and leverage those new features, those new pieces of functionality when you're ready to do so? Cloud systems now are subscription based. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through this, and really being able to make sure you're secure and lower those IT costs. In the middle circle there, you'll see all the power or the pieces of the stack that you can leverage from Azure, Microsoft DevOps, virtual agents, Office. I think almost everyone uses Office unless you're with that other company that starts with the G and you're using their technology for some reason. But really being able to utilize within your business all of these different pieces of software and functionality that Microsoft's investing so much in to really help grow and just make your life easier for you, your team members, and increase your customer experience. Here's a little different view on kind of the economics behind it. On the left-hand side, what you see there is the on-premise approach. And this lagging edge, I would call it, on the left side of this graphic is really all the costs and the things that go in to maintaining that on-premise solution. Applying patches, risk of downtime, upgrade work for your network, security upgrades, database upgrades, rewriting customizations when you do have to go to a new version or a new OS or it could be as simple as a patch for the operating system, right? Now you got to fix something else. Integrations, which oftentimes can be painful and need a lot of upkeep if they're done the old way, I would say. And then really, all of the applications that go with those, right? What other pieces of software are dependent on those? What are you using in unison? All of those things are need to be maintained, need to be invested in all the time in an on-premise solution. On the right-hand side, this is a nice simplified version of the Microsoft Cloud and what goes into it. Notice that lagging edge on the left-hand side is gone. Really, it's now about that leading edge. And what you're dealing with is subscription fees, software as a service, ERP as a service, which we'll talk about more in a minute, and then the implementation, customization, and training that goes with that. The rest of it, you don't need to worry about anymore, right? Azure, hardware, latest updates, those things are natural. They happen automatically. The way the architecture of Dynamics is today, you don't have to do major upgrades. The way that the development layer and the ISVs and all those things work together, those upgrades just happen. You don't have to go through a 9-month project to go to another version. It happens for you automatically. It really is a game changer for modernizing the business. And from a competitive perspective, this is what you gain. Instead of being reactive, you're proactive. Instead of having siloed data, you've got that connected data view. Incomplete data, meaning you got some here, you got some there. Sometimes it talks to each other, sometimes it doesn't. You really have a holistic view as opposed to having to pull it out into Excel, create a pivot table to be able to look at what you want to look at. You have a holistic view of what's really going on within your organization. And then historical reporting, as opposed to data-driven outcomes and making decisions off of real information, real time, so that you can plan for today as well as tomorrow. And a little bit more about competitive edge, visibility of the business, flexibility, scalability, auto backups, auto restore, 24/7, 365 agreements in place, leveraging Azure IoT, leveraging Power BI, constant updates. It's going to increase production, speed, and innovation. Last year, Forrester did a study, and they outlined a little bit around, I've got a logo there in the top right corner that I don't know how that got in there, I apologize, but they outlined just a summary of kind of what is the total cost of ownership for moving into a cloud solution. And Tyler is going to give us some more detail around this in a few minutes, but at a high level, what they saw is within 9 months, it was paid back. And the ROI was upwards of 122% on that investment. And when you look at that just at a high level, it almost doesn't even make sense, as they're big numbers. But when you look at the known costs to maintain and continue to use and grow with and into a system like Dynamics, compared to the cost and the risk that goes into keeping up an on-premise solution, the numbers don't lie. The net benefits are real, and it really does help streamline the organization that's doing this. On the bottom here, you'll see some quotes, and this is from the Forrester study, talking about being on a more out-of-the-box solution that really helps position them better for the future. Biggest benefit of Dynamics 365 is the elimination of a lot of manual entry across the board. And then the scalability and the growth potential, being able to grow at the rate that we are because we have all this information from Dynamics for decision making. Our executives have been able to make really good strategic decisions. If you're looking at just past data instead of forecasting, if you're trying to get stuff into Excel manually to make business decisions, errors happen. It takes time. You can't be as quick in making those decisions as you can if you can just hit a button and have access to it, right? That's real stuff. One thing I want to hit on here too is that quote on the bottom left. I think is super important. Being on a more out-of-the-box finance solution. Like I said earlier, I've been doing this. It's been 27 years actually. It's been a long time, and we used to customize everything. You want it to work this way? No problem. We can do that. We don't do that anymore. There's a lot of reasons for it. But really what it comes down to is being able to maintain the system the right way, but also being able to just use core to evolve the businesses around best practices. Instead of saying it needs to work this way, what we want to talk about is the business outcome that we're trying to achieve, and using core and making sure we're solving for the business outcome is going to be key to keeping the costs down, simplifying the approach, and making sure that the system that's in place is supportable and maintainable long term. So I'm going to hand it over to Tyler here for a moment, and Tyler's going to take us through the future of Microsoft Cloud and a little bit more about uniquely Microsoft.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. When we talk to our customers, it's really easy when we're doing an ERP journey or a CRM journey or a project management journey to really think about things in the lens of one specific problem when it comes to business applications. So a lot of times our customers will start with finance, but what I want to point out is that Dynamics is not just an ERP system. It's not just a CRM system. What it is a platform of business applications that work great on their own, but better together. It's very valuable to have a single unified vendor that has all of these different solutions that seamlessly integrate, that have a unified data architecture underneath them and tools that are built specifically for that platform, and have a composable approach, right? We can't rip and replace every single system in phase one of an upgrade project, right? But when we select an ERP system, it's important to be thinking about not just what are our needs today, but what does the next 10 years look like? Is our business growing? Are we going to be going through acquisitions and mergers? And what are our future needs around project management, HR, customer service, ERP? All of these applications that work seamlessly on the same unified platform of Azure is where we set ourselves apart from our competition in terms of being able to have this composable approach to business applications moving forward. On top of our dynamic stack, we have what's called the Power Platform, and we see those icons across the bottom there. And what these are, I call them the 3 A's. They let us have embedded analytics with Power BI. We have automation with Power Automate, and adaptability with Power Apps. So Power BI is where we get these embedded analytics that are interactive, that are really rich. We can embed them within the software. We can put them in a team site. We can access them on a mobile device that's using real-time data from all of our different systems. We'll talk a little bit more about that architecture as well. Power Apps is our low-code development platform where I can build an app, embed it right within my ERP system, use it mobile, embed it in Teams, oftentimes without actually requiring a developer to write a single line of code. It's called a low-code, no-code development platform. Now, Power Automate is how we use different business events within the ERP system, as an example, to trigger a automated flow. So a great example of that is automating accounts payable. So an invoice comes in as a PDF or whatever format we receive a vendor invoice for to an inbox. Power Automate will monitor that Outlook inbox. It'll see that attachment. It'll pull that data, read through all of the lines of that invoice, and it will do optical character recognition to pull out who's the vendor, what's the purchase order that it's matched to, what are my lines, quantity, item number, price, and actually import that invoice so we don't have to manually enter that invoice in. From there, it will automatically match it to the purchase order, match it to our product receipt, and if everything matches, it hits all of our tolerances for invoice validation, two-way, three-way matching. If all of that looks good, it can automatically post that invoice so we'd have no human interaction on that invoice. We can even take it a step further and make completely touchless AP, where we will have the system generate a payment proposal for us every day for our outstanding AP, and then it's just up to the user to review that payment journal, generate the payments, and post that transaction through. So all of these come down to a system that's highly adaptable. It gives us real-time insights into our data and lets us really have a complete picture of that digital transformation that we're shooting for. So if we drill into our approach to finance specifically on the next slide, we're really seeing this shift from traditional finance to what we're calling modern finance. So traditional finance is concerned about operational necessity, so things like accounting, tax compliance, budgeting. What we're really seeing with this shift is the role of finance is changing. It's not just about balance sheets and income statements anymore. It's really a strategic role for moving the business forward into the future. So we think of a modern CFO, we're thinking they're talking about things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, analytics, cybersecurity. I heard from a CFO that implemented Dynamics one time. I said, you know, what's the thing that keeps you up at night? What's the best thing about moving to the cloud platform? And he says, I can sleep at night because I don't have to worry about data breaches. I don't have to worry about my system going down because all of that is outsourced to Microsoft, and we have the world-class infrastructure of Azure. So let's talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. What is that power of the Microsoft cloud? So we have our ERP data, typically on an on-prem system that's locked into a specific database. And if I want to do reporting on it, if I want to access other information from other systems to merge with my ERP data, I have to have a data mart that pulls the entire database, puts it into another location. I need to run different transforms on it and so on. But our approach to Azure data is completely different. By having your Dynamics data in the cloud, in the Azure data lake, we can leverage tools within Azure, like our out-of-box data connectors to even non-Microsoft systems. So if we're using Salesforce or other ERP systems, we can actually pull that data with out-of-box connectors into our Azure data lake, marry it with our ERP data, and get insights into that data. So we're all familiar with the productivity suite of Office, Excel, Outlook, Word, Teams. But on top of being able to embed our solutions within that productivity suite and seamlessly integrate with Excel for finance, as an example, the Azure data tools let us leverage things like AI Builder, Azure Machine Learning to do things like customer payment predictions. Maybe we can look at the historical data for when we get paid by a particular customer, and we can predict this $70,000 invoice, is that predicted to be on time? Is it going to be late? That gives us a more accurate cash flow forecast. And of course, on top with our Power Platform, getting those analytics in near real time. This is the power of the Microsoft Cloud, being able to have a data architecture that can stitch data from other systems, get actionable insights onto it using our analytics tools and our AI Builder. And it's really what sets Microsoft apart from the competition, is the completeness of our vision around our data architecture. It's what we do best. So if we go to the next slide, just to think about what does it look like when we can actually put all of this data together. So ERP conversations always turn into a data management conversation. We've got great data in all these different systems, but that data is only as good as my ability to digest and interpret it. So when we think about what's uniquely Microsoft, it's our ability to take all of these different business silos and take the data and insights that they're capturing and put them into one place and leverage our data tools against it. So we think about factual data. We can see ERP data seeing revenue spikes over time. Observational data, maybe I have an IoT device at a physical location that's tracking our customer traffic and inputting that data into Azure. Organizational insights, if we're using our HR module, we can see what's our capacity at these various locations. Our ERP system is full finance and supply chain management. So maybe we're looking at what is that inventory trends over time, so we can have ideas in the future of, when are we going to be short in item number 1, 2, 3? What's our quantity on hand at other locations? Being able to predict that we might need to make those moves. Stitching in maybe social media data, leveraging tools like sentiment analysis. If somebody makes a social media post about my organization, our data tools can actually read what's that sentiment on there, how are we doing? So being able to put all of this data into one location is what's uniquely Microsoft, and how we are able to turn data into insights and then insights into action. So on the topic of AI, and we've heard that buzzword, it's really transforming business in general, in the world as we know it, to be honest. A couple of examples of how we're leveraging artificial intelligence into our solutions. So the first one is around credit and collections. So we're leveraging GPT functionality into our credit and collections process that'll give us some AI generated insights into a customer specific example. So we're looking at an example of a customer on this screenshot, and it's actually giving me some text, saying that they have great credit, usually pays on time, but recently defaulted on 20,000, and we get another little paragraph on there that gives a little more insights into it. We can even take it a step further, and the system will generate collection letters for us, collection emails using AI generated text that we can just review, make sure it looks good, and hit send rather than actually physically typing out a message. So you can imagine what kind of time savings there is when all of that is just done for you. And on the next slide, we're talking about a feature that's upcoming. Past just general ledger accounting, budget planning, and forecasting, we're actually leveraging a new tool for financial planning and analysis. We're calling it XP&A. And this is what's going to get you to that next stage of planning and analysis outside of just standard budgeting. And we're leveraging AI tools, looking at historical trends of our budget to forecast and so on. So this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and Ryan mentioned, what does it mean to be on a cloud solution that you're getting access to these? On an on-prem system, to leverage some of these tools would require downtime. It would require a project to actually do the upgrade, make sure that all of our customizations are still functioning properly with the new code. Our system's backwards compatible, so we let our code execute, and we have an extension model rather than an overlayering model that you see on these on-prem systems. So by moving onto a cloud solution like this, you're always on the latest version. You'll be able to leverage this as soon as it's released. And I should just mention that all of these new features are opt-in, so you don't have to worry about logging into your system and all of a sudden your sales order form is radically different. We have a feature management workspace that lists out all of the new features that you have available to you, so you can review them and enable them or leave them disabled. So Um, so let's talk about the economic impact side of things. You know, Ryan talked about the high level overview of what Forrester was doing, and kind of the summarization of it, but I want to provide a little clarity into those 4 areas around IT, admin, finance, avoided legacy costs, and the unquantifiable benefits. So how they executed this study is they interviewed 4 different organizations that recently implemented Dynamics 365 for finance, our ERP solution. And here's some data on what those customers looked like. And what they did is they took the results that they gathered from those 4 organizations, and they combined them and averaged them out to create what they call the composite organization that's representative of the group here. And they provided a 3-year risk-adjusted value, primarily focused on IT impacts, business impact, risk, and strategic impact. At the bottom, we see a link out to aka.ms/finance TEI, total economic impact. And that's an external link. If you want to read further on that study and get into the granular details, we have a public facing blog that you can access there. But let's start with the IT admin productivity. So the results of that were 403,000. And the one that I want to really focus in on here is the ability to take IT staff from just doing development work, doing data maintenance, doing server management, things of that nature. By moving into a software as a service model, they're able to focus their time and their expertise on value added activities rather than just keeping the ship afloat. So we think about our Power Platform, our Power BI, our Power Automate, our Power Apps. You can think about the ability of your IT department to leverage these tools to create more fluid business processes, automate, get insights into data, or maybe even just simplify things through Power Apps. So it's really moving them from just operating, keeping the system running, to really a more strategic position to leverage the skill sets that they have to actually have return on the business. So with that, let's move into the finance personnel productivity, and that was 2.3 million. The ones that I really want to call out here is real-time reporting and analytics. So we're no longer waiting for a data mart to pull data at the end of the day, or however often we have that set to execute that. We're getting near real-time data. As soon as I post a transaction, that's going to be reflected into my Azure Data Lake that's running all of my Power BI visuals and all of the merging of data from external systems. So we can really get insights into the data faster because it's real time rather than having to wait for some batch process to execute. Period close. It's the most sensitive topic that I've come across when talking to finance departments. The story's always the same. We're managing our process in Excel spreadsheets. I don't know what has been done yet. I'm waiting for this person to do this before I can do this. And we've really simplified that and created a workspace around managing all of the tasks that need to happen during period end, whether that's month end, quarter end, or year end, who's responsible for them, what order they need to be done in, and then leveraging that Power Automate and other tools to eliminate some of that manual processes that need to happen. The other ones that I want to call out is more automation, right? We gave the example of invoice automation, but we can really think about any business event, whether it be confirming a purchase order or invoicing a sales order, or any business event within the system can be used as a trigger for these Power Automate flows. So that's why it's really important to have the right partner when you go through a software implementation, because they're not just software consultants, they're business consultants, and they're going to help identify when we think about digital transformation and what the next 10 years of our operations look like. It's not just about how we post journal entries, it's how do we automate certain things? How do we build the system out so that we're doing less manual journal entries at the end of each month, those sorts of things. So it's the productivity savings that really contribute to the finance personnel. And we've talked about this one a lot, avoided legacy costs. So this is the biggest one. 3.5 million is what Forrester discovered in their interviewing. And it really comes down to the manual workload of maintaining on-premise server systems, data architecture, stitching these applications together, and so on. Anytime there's a new feature, there's impact to the business. You know, taking down your financial system to do an upgrade has impact to operations. So we think about the ability to sunset different applications that we have. I've talked to customers that say, I have this system for general ledger accounting, I have this system for fixed assets, I have another one for expense management, another one for project. All of those have different licensing associated with them, different skill sets and training that you need to have with your IT department, and knowledge ends up existing with just a few sets of people for each application. And that's really where that value of our composable, seamless integration approach to business applications really shines, because we're able to oftentimes during implementation find out, I no longer need this fixed asset system. We have it out of box with finance. I no longer need to pay for this expense management because we have expense reports and expense approvals right within the application, integrated with our finance already. So that's going to be where the real key from a avoided legacy cost perspective comes in, is being able to sunset our server rooms, not have to worry about the capital expense of a hardware upgrade, hardware refresh every 5 to 10 years. All of that is included with your subscription fees, and it's all maintained and managed by Microsoft. And then lastly, it's the unquantifiable benefits. So these are things that don't necessarily have a dollar value attached to them, but are very important. So we think about quality of life for our finance personnel. We were thinking about, if you have to do some recruiting and a potential candidate is considering multiple offers, and one of their offers is going to be running on green screen applications that were built 20 years ago, and the other option is a modern organization with modern technology that likely they're familiar with. That's where we can start to see the finance department really be able to leverage themselves from a candidate perspective and get access to the top-notch quality candidates. But being able to standardize processes across the organization lets us transfer resources, lets them be able to be loaned to other departments, other legal entities if we have a multi-legal entity company. Less or no overtime during month end, happier staff means less attrition. Improved system availability. So we talked about a guaranteed uptime by Microsoft, so that our system is up to date, it's always on, it's accessible from anywhere, any device, and it's the same exact login that I use for Teams, for Outlook, for Office, to get into Dynamics and to get into the Power Platform. Mitigating those risks of major outages. You don't have to worry about keeping your system up and running or worry about floods or wildfires. We have all of that maintained within our data centers, and redundancy between multiple data centers as well. And then better visibility. Real-time data lets you get insights into your data faster to make decisions in more real time rather than waiting. And then, of course, the flexibility of Dynamics in the Power Platform. So all of these things are what make Microsoft unique in the competitive landscape of business applications. There's lots of options out there, but our customers see value when they're thinking about a software implementation is not just requirements, how to post this journal entry, how to do this invoice. It's really thinking about, what does the future of our organization look like? What platform do we want to invest in? Because we want this to be the last ERP implementation that you ever have to do, because you'll be on the latest version all the time. So again, thank you guys for your time. And if there's any questions, happy to take those at the end here. But thank you. And Ryan, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Excuse me. Thank you, Tyler. I love the data slide, by the way, that we had up a minute ago, because being able to make real-time decisions, have that data together, know what's going on in the business to forecast and plan is, I mean, it's one of the most important things, right? And, years ago, we used to put all this great data into the system, and it's all there, but you can never get it out, right? And that has changed dramatically with these new tool sets, to be able to get it easily so that you can know what you need to do and be proactive in those decisions. So when you do decide to migrate to the cloud, how do you make sure that you're successful? How do you mitigate the risk, and how do you plan the right way? This is some things to consider. This is not a complete list by any means, but these are things that you need to be aware of. Sometimes it has to do with pain points today. Sometimes it has to do with the data warehousing and how you're going to deal with legacy data. Sometimes it's about, making sure you're getting the right training in place so that those subject matter experts know really, really, really well how to do what they need to do. Reporting, BI, multiple environments, customizations, et cetera, et cetera. These are things you have to think about. You have to have a plan for. You have to be able to have a plan on how to deal with. One of the things that I personally like to do in a process with a new customer or even a current client that's looking at migrating to the cloud is there's really 4 areas that we want to focus in on. It's the business drivers and the project objectives. Why are we talking today? What are you trying to do that you're not doing today? I don't mean from a feature function perspective. I'm talking about from a business perspective. What is driving the fact that we're talking about an ERP project? Because let's be honest, no one wakes up randomly one day and says, I think I'm going to pull my ERP system out and put in a new one. That's not something that you make a decision on. It's something that you come to a conclusion on because of challenges and things that are going on in the business. So you've got to plan it the right way because it's got to succeed. You don't want to do it twice. And it really will affect the business if you're not focusing on those business drivers. What challenges do I have today? We see a lot of times here things like manual processes, no real-time reporting, lots of work in Excel being done outside of the system, and really just inaccurate data. What kind of new capabilities do I want to gain when the new technology is in place? Do I want to integrate it to my CRM system? Do I want to integrate it to my HR system? I want that real-time reporting across my business units. I want those automation pieces. I want those workflows so that I can scale and grow. We're going to acquire 3 businesses in the next 8 years, right? I need to be able to plan and have a system in place that's going to allow me to do those things that I need to do from an overall growth perspective. And then really accurate forecasting business, across the business units. Those are some examples we see in new capabilities. There could be 30 other things in there, by the way, depending what you're doing, what you're not doing, what industry you are in, those kinds of pieces. And then one of the most important ones in my mind is really the risks. What's in our way from being successful? What kinds of things do we need to plan for and plan around and take into consideration in our project plan to make sure we're mitigating the risk the right way? I don't want to customize. I want to change my processes wherever I can to utilize industry best practices and core functionality out of the system. Clear deliverables and project requirements. Got to make those data migration decisions. Years ago, we used to take all of that data and put it into the new ERP, including transactions. We don't do that anymore. I would highly, highly, highly suggest you don't do that. You focus on master records, beginning balances, those kinds of pieces, open documents, and you take that transactional history and you put it into a data warehouse so you can continue to report on it with your new data, but the risk just goes through the roof if you try to put that in the new ERP. User adoption, change management. Some of my team members have been using this system for 20 years that we're on, whatever it is. It's one that we wrote ourselves over the last 20 years. How do I make sure that they can adapt to the new technology and the new processes, whatever those are? We have to plan for that. And then every time, on budget. How do you make sure that it costs what you think it's going to cost and that it hits the timelines that you need it to hit because of busy seasons and whatever else? These will absolutely derail a project if you don't plan for them the right way. And all of these things are driving business outcomes, right? The goal, decrease your costs, increase revenue, increase your profit, be able to scale, be able to grow, and have that competitive advantage. Those are oftentimes business outcomes that we see and we hear in conversations. How do you manage those risks then, right? So I had the risks area up there of things that we got to plan for. We got to have buy-in. Executives, leaders, team members, they've got to be on board. They've got to know why we're doing this. They've got to want to do this. And if there's people or teams or whatever that are unsure, we need to work together if we're your partner to help plan that the right way so that we can lay that foundation for them and they understand how this is going to make things just better than they are today. Not having enough bandwidth within your team. this is our job. We do this full time. We go in, we implement ERP systems, we consult with organizations on how to improve their technology. You already have a full-time job. You're running your core business. How do you now make sure that your team has time set aside and devoted to working with someone like us to help put the new technology in place? If that's not accounted for the right way, we got a problem. It's got to be funded. You got to have realistic expectations for the budget and the costs and those things. Key team members, turnover, that will affect it. Making sure that you test it, the training's good, test it again, test it some more. If we don't do the right amount of testing and user acceptance testing, we're not going to know that something's not working or not meeting the business requirement until we flip that switch. We got to do that together the right way. We've got to define the scope and the requirements so that we know what success actually is. And the number one thing that I hear that is a red flag every time that we've got to deal with is being asked to make the new system look and feel and work like the old system. If the old system is so good, why are we talking about changing it, right? You've got to be willing to adapt and change those processes to be more efficient and not have it work and feel and look like the one that's 25 years old that you're replacing.
Right. Ryan, can I comment on that one? I would absolutely validate that coming from the functional consulting side. I always said the most dangerous thing you can say in an implementation for ERP is we've always done it this way. So, when you end up customizing the system to make it do exactly what you did, you've gained nothing other than a prettier look. So the other key is being able to have the right decision makers in the room with end users, because I've seen, going back and forth of, I can't make that decision on how we make the change. So being able to have those decision makers involved in the design and in the actual implementation is critical as well.
Yep, absolutely agree with you. So a little bit more about some of those key areas, minimizing the risk. And then let's talk a little bit about how you plan. What do you do? So Microsoft has a program for migration assessments, and we are a key partner in that program where we can work on Microsoft's behalf with organizations to really plan their move to the cloud. So oftentimes Microsoft has some funding available depending on how you work with Microsoft as an organization and what else you're doing with them. They will fund parts of these assessments often, but really the goal is to understand what you're doing today, what you're not doing today, what's working today, what's not working today, so that we can put together a good plan, scope, timeline, cost, etc., to move you in to Dynamics 365, whether that is F&O, CRM, whatever it may be. But it's a migration assessment of how to get your key business drivers and outcomes into Dynamics 365. You'll see some examples of some customers that we've done this for really in the recent past. Some of these are in the middle of their D365 projects right now because the assessments are done and happens successfully, so we can move into the larger project. But would love to talk with you about what this might look like for you and your organization. So I'm going to put Tyler's or my contact info up there real quick. If you want, please email me. I would love to talk with you about how we might be able to help you. I'm just looking here and I don't see any questions at the moment, and that's okay. Oftentimes there's not questions. You're trying to digest information. We will send this recording out. We will send this slide deck out at the completion of our session today. If you do come up with something you want to talk about or a way that I might be able to help you myself, please reach out to me anytime. And if I don't have the answers, I'll pull the right people in. But again, the goal here was to show you and talk with you about eventually you got to make the move. How do you do it to make sure you're successful, lower the chance of failure, to be able to utilize new technology and grow your business the right way? Tyler, anything you want to add here before we wrap up?
Just I appreciate the time. When I think about customers going on this journey, right, you're going to look at several options. And just know that the life cycle of an ERP system or business applications in general is not what it used to be. You're usually, it used to be you're selecting system that's maybe 5 to 7 years of a life cycle. The cloud solutions are significantly longer because you're always up to date. You're never going to have to go through an upgrade to get to the latest features. So it is a really important decision when you're moving from an on-prem to a cloud solution. So I guess my challenge would be, who do you want to invest in from a platform perspective that's going to be with you, not for just what your needs are today, but 10, 20 years down the line?
Absolutely. Awesome. Tyler, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to do this with you today. Thank you, everyone that showed up. It was nice to have you here listening to us. And again, if we can help with anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.
Thank you.